So the California ban on so-called large capacity magazines is now set to end likely in December. So let's talk about this. But real quick before we jump into this video, if you believe California's ban on so-called large capacity magazines is unconstitutional, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Also want to give a shout out to one of the main supporters of this channel, which is USCCA. Through your membership, you get training, education, and self-defense liability protection. So if you carry a firearm, I highly recommend you take a look into USCCA, and I'll put a link to them down in the details section. So like I said in the intro, there's an important update in the Duncan v. Bonta California magazine ban case. If you recall, last week I put up a video discussing how the Ninth Circuit en banc panel has just vacated and remanded the Duncan case back down to Judge Benitez in the Southern District of California. However, like I speculated in the prior video, I anticipated that Judge Benitez would likely take reins of this case really fast and would also issue an order in regards to Freedom Week magazines and the current possession of those magazines. And in fact, we did get an order yesterday. In this new order, Judge Benitez outlines where this case is going to go from here, and also what is the current legal status of these pre-banned magazines and Freedom Week magazines as well. Now, for those not aware, Duncan v. Bonta involves the possession and purchase of so-called large capacity magazines in California. California Penal Code Section 32310 bans the buying, selling, possession, etc. of magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. This law was originally challenged in the Southern District of California before District Court Judge Roger T. Benitez, or St. Benitez as he's now known in the state of California. And Judge Benitez issued a ruling that found that this law in California was indeed a violation of the Second Amendment. In fact, he granted a motion for summary judgment in favor of the plaintiffs in this case, and also issued a permanent injunction in regards to this issue of magazines, which prevented the state of California and law enforcement officers and agencies from banning magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. Well, the state of California obviously did not like that. They didn't like that they lost, so they decided to appeal this case and decision up to the Ninth Circuit. Because of that, the Judge Benitez issued a stay on part of his own judgment, but left part of his judgment also in effect to protect those who purchased magazines during that Freedom Week period. Then this case made its way up through the Ninth Circuit. A three-judge panel in the Ninth Circuit ruled in favor of us California gun owners once again. They upheld Judge Benitez's ruling. State of California didn't like they lost once again, so they decided to appeal that to an en banc panel in the Ninth Circuit. On review, the en banc panel in the Ninth Circuit found in favor of the state of California and struck down all those other decisions. But then what happened is this was then sought for certiorari by the Supreme Court. It was elevated to the Supreme Court level. And ultimately what the Supreme Court did is they granted, vacated, and remanded this case. Then the question was, what was the Ninth Circuit en banc panel going to do with this case? Would they actually hear this case in light of Bruin? But once again, the state of California didn't want to deal with this issue. They knew they were likely going to lose. The Ninth Circuit knew that they could not apply their analysis anymore, so they decided to kick this case back down to Judge Benitez for him to reconsider the case in light of Bruin. But there was some questions about, since they were going to vacate, or they did vacate Judge Benitez's prior ruling, what is the current legal status of those Freedom Week magazines that people are in possession of? There were also some questions about what was going to happen with this case going forward. Would this be dragged out even longer, or was Judge Benitez going to streamline this case like he has with other cases? I told you guys in the prior video it was kind of in a limbo status, but I thought that this would be resolved. I talked about that in my last video. I said that Judge Benitez would issue some sort of order clarifying what would happen, what was going to happen in this case. I also speculated that the 2017 preliminary injunction was also still going to be found in effect. Many of you don't recall, but in 2017, Judge Benitez granted a preliminary injunction in favor of the plaintiffs in this case, which prevented the law enforcement officers in the state of California from taking any action against those in possession of pre-banned magazines. My position was that the 2017 injunction was still in effect. It still protected pre-banned magazines. And of course, my thought was that Judge Benitez would expand that to also protect Freedom Week magazines. And my guess was pretty much almost word for word correct. Yesterday, Judge Benitez issued the following order. On June 29th, 2017, this court's preliminary injunction enjoined enforcement of California Penal Code Section 32310, subsection C and D, requiring persons to dispossess themselves of magazines able to hold more than 10 rounds, lawfully acquired and possessed. The preliminary injunction was affirmed on appeal. On March 29, 2019, on summary judgment, this court concluded that California Penal Code Section 32310 is unconstitutional. On April 4, 2019, this court made the preliminary injunction on subsection C and D permanent, but stayed pending appeal the injunction of Section 32310A and B. This court was again affirmed on appeal. Ninth Circuit granted rehearing en banc, vacated its opinion, and entered an opinion reversing the judgment of this court. The United States Supreme Court granted certiorari and vacated the opinion of the Ninth Circuit and remanded for further consideration. The Ninth Circuit now remands the case to this court for further proceedings in light of New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin, and the mandate has issued. This court hereby spreads the mandate upon minutes of this court. The defendant shall file any additional briefing that is necessary to decide this case in light of Bruin within 45 days of this order. Plaintiff shall file any responsive briefing within 21 days thereafter. The court will then decide the case on the briefs and the prior record or schedule additional hearings. The previously entered preliminary injunction enjoining enforcement of California Penal Code Section 32310, subsections C and D, for magazines able to hold more than 10 rounds, shall remain in effect for all those who previously acquired and possessed magazines legally, including those persons and business entities who acquired magazines during March 29, 2019 and April 5, 2019, pending further order of this court. So that is the order he just issued. So the first thing I want to point out in that order is that Judge Benitez has now clarified that the 2017 preliminary injunction is still in place, and that it also extends to protecting those who acquired and still possess Freedom Week magazines. So right now, it is still legal for you to have Freedom Week magazines, to possess those magazines, to use those magazines. Again, be careful where you use them or what you use them in. There are still some restrictions on the whole ban on so-called assault weapons where you can't use magazines that hold more than 10 rounds and fixed magazine configuration. So still be aware of all that. But right now, Judge Benitez is saying that his 2017 preliminary injunction is still in effect and that you are still able to lawfully possess and use those Freedom Week magazines. Again, I anticipated and I said that I did not think Judge Benitez would let people become felons overnight because of his ruling, that he would clarify that it's still lawful, and now he has. The second important thing that came out of this order is the speed at which he is going to try to resolve this case. Judge Benitez is giving the state of California 45 days to file their additional arguments to why this whole magazine ban in the state of California is still valid even under Bruin. In past, we saw California argue in the Miller case that Judge Benitez should give them close to an additional year to come up with relevant history and tradition to support their position and their bans. But like in Miller, Benitez is going to expedite this case. So all the briefs will be due at the beginning of December, and then Judge Benitez said he will decide based on those papers and all the prior information and briefs and stuff that was filed in this case. He said he could schedule additional hearings if he needs, if he sees fit, but based on the tone of this order, based on his track record in these cases, I would suspect that he's not going to drag this out any longer. He's going to get those briefs filed and is going to rule based on those briefs. So we might be in for a really big Christmas miracle, and it might be St. Benitez who delivers the biggest present during Christmas instead of St. Nick. So again, this is a case we're going to be keeping our eyes on. Right now, it is still lawful for you to possess and use those Freedom Week magazines, and Judge Benitez is expediting this case as fast as possible. So stay tuned to the channel. It's looking more and more like the California ban on so-called large capacity magazines will go away even before the end of this year. It could be that we get another Freedom Week, maybe even longer, even if the state of California decides to appeal this case. So that's where the California magazine ban case currently stands and where your possession of Freedom Week magazines also currently stands. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. Also, like this video and like support the channel. One of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm or fuel Al Gore's rhythm. It adds fuel to his jet and signals to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos and in this type of two-way news. Again, I want to thank everybody who likes, comments, subscribes, who hits the notification bell, who shares these videos. You guys are directly impacting these videos, impacting this channel, and helping me to reach and educate more people than I could ever do on my own. So again, thank you so much for all of your support. And as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this is Built by Armed Scholars, and this nation will be maintained by Armed Scholars.